Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fisher Fitness Coaching Podcast. My name is Rich, obviously, and this is episode 39. This will be a quick one. Hopefully, I'm talking 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. So this is going to be on, two ways of saying it. So it's basically the non-scientific name of this is an aggressive diet or fast fat loss, aggressive dieting, however you want to call it. The more scientific name is the protein sparing modified fast. So I'm going to go through what it is and whether or not it's useful. Is it dangerous? Should you be doing it? What, all the sort of ins and outs really. And it's just like if we really simplify it, another method which can be used to lose body fat very quickly. Now, I know a lot of things you have maybe seen or heard in the past saying you shouldn't lose body fat quick, you shouldn't crash diet, you shouldn't create a big deficit because it's dangerous and it causes eating disorders and poor relationships with food and all that other stuff, And for some people, it's not. I wouldn't recommend it. But this is again, like with everything with nutrition and training and muscle growth, it depends on the person. So I'm not saying you should definitely try this. I'm saying it's a method you can potentially use if you want quick fat loss results. I should say that yes, for some people it's not a good idea. If you are listening and you have a poor relationship with food, I'm just going to say this now, a poor relationship with food, or if you in the past you've had issues with eating disorders or you're recovering from a previous eating disorder, then you should absolutely not try this. Your focus should just be improving your relationship with food and sticking to 3 to 4 well-balanced meals per day, not tracking, making sure that you've got enough vegetables and fruit and lean protein, whole natural foods, not restricting anything, and living by the sort of 80-20 guideline, and knowing that you have permission to eat whatever you want. Those are your guidelines, I suppose. But anyway, I'm not going into that because I'm not an eating disorder specialist. That's not my lane. I need to stay in my own lane. If anyone listening to this does have issues with that, then you need to speak to a professional. Anyway, so the protein sparing modified fast, aka aggressive diet. What is it? Basically, it's when you restrict your calories by a lot. You have a lot of protein. You create a big deficit, and you lose body fat very quickly. So you could lose, using this method, obviously depending on the person, depending on the amount of body fat you have, you could lose up to 6 pounds of body fat per week. So the potential is around 2 to 8 pounds of body fat every single week if you use this method. I'm not saying you will, I'm saying some people might, but the people who lose the top end of that range will often be obese, so have a lot of body fat to lose. In that case, there's a higher chance that they will lose body fat very quickly and a lot of body fat very quickly because they're so used to being in such a big surplus. Then when they create a big deficit, then the body fat will just drop off them very, very quickly. So obviously, depending on your starting body fat percentage, your activity levels, and your calorie intake, obviously. The next thing I need to mention is this is not a long-term solution. This is for short-term purposes only. So I wouldn't recommend doing this for any more than maybe 2 weeks at a time. 3 weeks max. So literally you could do this for 1 week, maybe 1 to 2 weeks, and then you could go back to maintenance for 3, 4 weeks or whatever. You could do this. You could do this aggressive diet for a week, and then you could go back to a not so aggressive diet for, I don't know, a month. So it's not, what am I trying to say? There are different methods you can use. It's not like a be all be all. Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Hopefully, you know what I'm trying to say. It's not. It's not a. It's not a method you have to stick to. It's something you can chop and change. You can just sort of implement it into your life every so often. You could. So, for example, you could say, right, I'm going to do a protein sparing modified fast or an aggressive diet this week to try and lose a couple of pounds of body fat, and then I'm going to go back to what I was doing before, back to maintenance, so I can eat more calories and then you could do that every month. So if you think about it, like 12 months, right? If you did a aggressive diet for a week and then back to maintenance for a month, and then every month do at the start of every month do an aggressive diet for a week, you would lose in that year. You would lose a lot of body fat, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that works for you, if you can sustain that 1 week on, a month off, 1 week on, a month off, that's totally fine. You can absolutely do that. But like I said, it may work for you, it may not work for you, it may work for others. So yeah, lost my train of thought as per usual. So yeah, this is a short term not fit. This is a short term solution, not long term. I wouldn't recommend, like, it's not sustainable. If you any aggressive diet or big calorie deficits just aren't sustainable because it will affect your hunger, your mood, your libido, and your sort of your hormones, your hunger hormones will go a bit crazy, and your metabolism will obviously reduce as well. So this is why I'd recommend 1 to 2 weeks tops, 3 weeks absolute tops if you can actually manage it. So I'm currently doing another cut, as you probably know. I wouldn't call it an aggressive diet. It's medium. It's sort of a moderate deficit. I'm not using this method really, but I will give you an example of if I was to use this method, what kind of calories I would be consuming and the amount of protein, etc., etc. I'll do that in a bit. But at the minute, I'm just doing a 2,000 calories per day, 150 grams of protein, and I'm losing body fat fairly quickly. It's been 2 weeks and I've lost nearly 2 kilos. So that's what, 2 pounds. It's 2.2 pounds in a kilo. So about 2 pounds a week, which is almost like that's basically 1,000 calorie deficit, I think, which would sort of make sense if my maintenance is around 3,000, just under, yeah, give or take. And that for me, it's going very well. Like I'm not feeling hungry. I'm not irritable. I'm getting results. Like it's quick enough so I'm motivated. The problem with having a smaller deficit is that the results are a lot slower, which means you have to diet for a long time to get results. And because the results aren't that quick, then you may lose motivation fairly quickly. So I like quick fat loss results because you don't have to be in a diet or in a deficit for a long time. You get results quicker. You're motivated, and the quicker you can get the fat loss results, the quicker you can go back to maintenance, and the quicker you can eat more food, which is what you want, right? So anyway, this protein sparing modified fast, it's essentially a very aggressive diet. It's a big deficit, which means you will lose body fat very quickly. The protein intake is very high, because you want to be losing just body fat. You don't want to be losing muscle tissue as well. So in order to reduce the chance of losing muscle tissue, we need to make sure your protein intake is very high. And obviously lift weights 2-3 times a week, reducing volume and intensity as well to take into account the lack of calories, aka energy, you are consuming, and to help out with recovery as well. So in the gym, reducing volume and intensity to help with all that, because you're literally trying to just maintain the muscle you have. You're not trying to break any records. You're not trying to get any PBs, or you're not expecting to build any muscle because you're on such a low amount of calories. So how do we work out your calories? So what you do is you find out your protein intake first, okay? And you do that by multiplying your body weight in kilos by around 1.9. Okay, so if I bring up a calculator, just bear with while I get it on the old Google. Calculator, there we go. Very handy. So let's do me. I am the example. So I'm 82 kilos times 0.9. And that's not right. So 73.8. What have I done wrong there? 1.9 times 1 point. There we go, that's better. Sorry, so 1.9 times 82. That comes up as 155. So my protein intake is around 155 grams per day, which I am consuming anyway. I'm consuming around 150, 160 grams per day. So I'm getting enough protein in. That's good. So 155 grams per day of protein. Then I would simply multiply that by 8.3. So 8.3 equals 1293. So 1,300 calories per day. That's not much, obviously. That's a very big deficit. So I know that if I was to have around 1,300 calories per day with 155 grams of protein, I would lose body fat very quickly. Now, because like this, again, because I'm already fairly lean, I've got visible abs. I'm not by any means overweight. I just like to lose a bit more body fat so I can appear more defined. Because that's what I want right now. That's my goal. So if you can see your abs already, you're around sort of 15-17% body fat, 23-25% body fat if you're female. You don't want to be going below 9.7. So instead of multiplying by 8.3, you want to multiply by about 9.7. So if I was to do that again, so if I clear that, 155 multiplied by 9.7, that's 1,500. So it's still not a massive amount, but it's just a bit more. So my calories for a protein sparing modified fast would be 1,500 per day, around 1,500 per day. So if I was to consume that every day, which is fairly doable, I think, if you had most of your food from vegetables and lean protein, a little bit of carbs, a little bit of fat, not much obviously, I think I would lose body fat quite quickly. But I know I wouldn't be able to sustain that for long. That would be, I don't know, I reckon 2 weeks tops. I'd manage that, and I reckon I would lose up to a good 5-6 pounds of body fat in 2 weeks if I was to consume that many. So that, I don't know if you want to, you can rewind that and go through the formula, I suppose, again. But if you want to write it down now, what you need to do is take your body weight in kilos and multiply it by 1.9, around 1.9. That gives you your daily protein intake. then you take your daily protein intake and multiply that by 8.3 if you're overweight, and around 9.7 if you're already fairly lean. Okay, but don't go below 9.7. So around 9.7 by 10, So you can play around with the numbers. You can play around with the sums and the formula, and you can take an average. Like, it's not, these are all estimates, but as long as you have an average number you can follow, then give it a go, and then you can sort of adjust your calories accordingly. But so yeah, that is the protein sparing modified fast, and that's a method you can use to lose body fat very quickly while maintaining and retaining the muscle tissue you have, because that's what we want. To improve body composition, we simply need to lose body fat while retaining muscle tissue. So yeah, that's basically it. But remember, a warning: don't do this for more than 2 weeks. 1 week is fine. 2 weeks is fine. I wouldn't do it for more than 2 weeks at a time. So you can do this aggressive diet for 2 weeks at a time, and then you can go back to maintenance, or you can just increase your calories by 500, around 500, and then consume those calories for 2-3 weeks, and then you can go back to the aggressive diet again for a week. You can. It's sort of multifaceted. You can chop and change depending on what you have going on in your week, and what your hunger levels are like, what you've got going on in your life. So yeah, give it a go, and let me know what you think. If you've got any questions on any of this, just let me know. But remember, please don't try this if you have if you're recovering from an eating disorder, or you have a poor relationship with food. It's not worth it. It's only for people who have good relationships with food and aren't sort of bothered by tracking or numbers or anything like that. All right, but I hope this helps, guys. Thank you for listening as per usual. Please share this episode to your friends, family. Leave me a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That would be awesome. If you've got any questions about coaching, or if you're interested for the March intake, let me know, and I will send over an application form for you. All right, guys, cheers. Have a good one, and I'll speak to you soon.